Good morning to everybody. Thank you, Luis and Jose Manuel, for having us here today. Here we are to talk about data, and the assumption will be data is relevant. Of course, otherwise we wouldn't be here. But we would like to add a second assumption or statement, which will be data is just a tool. And in order to understand how this tool can be valuable within the publishing industry, we believe that, first of all, we have to look to the environment and try to understand what the root causes and the underlying factors are behind the trends and the symptoms we see. That's why, before engaging properly in the discussion, we'll open the session with a general overview of the market. But before moving on, please let me introduce our two guests here today. First, we have Andrew, an old friend of many of us here, Andrew Rhomberg. You still keep the fresh look in your eyes from someone who grew professionally in a different background. And this is really great because within an industry like ours, so proud of having been delivering essentially the same product for centuries, it's good to have someone with a fresh air. And we have Michael Zen as well. Michael has a very interesting perspective as well because he has been working both as a publisher in Random House, in Bonnier, in Elsevier, among others, and now works in Weltbild, which is one of top 5 booksellers in Germany. So he has his double approach about the book industry. It's worth to note that Weltbild is part of the Tolino Alliance. So you have, and Weltbild is a very engaged company in direct-to-consumer strategies. So really a very interesting point of view. I'm sure that your input will be very interesting.
Yeah, hopefully we can share some secrets with you.
So as we said before starting, let's have a few notes. And the first question should be, how well is the publishing industry performing so far? We had some cues this morning, and one answer could be so-so. We have stagnant revenues or moderate growing revenues, but declining sales, as we have seen this morning, meaning that fewer books are being sold every year. And this will be a common trend in the US, for instance, but in some European countries as well, like Spain, France, Italy, UK, or even Germany. In all these markets, higher revenues are driven by higher prices, which mean, I do insist, fewer books are being sold, which is serious, of course. Then, if we pay attention to what the captains of the industry have to say, we are facing now 3 main challenges. The first one will be AI, of course, then economic pressures, this is a classic from every CEO statement, and then industry changes. And this could be, for instance, Amazon growing power, TikTok, or declining sales of nonfiction as a genre, who knows. From a different perspective now, it's worth to recall some significant events of the last year. And the first one could be, for instance, KKR selling RB Media for more than $1 billion. And this is relevant because RB Media is the audio publisher of some established brands like Zora Mas, Tolkien, or Rebecca Yarros. And it's worth to note that Planeta is the Spanish publisher of these names here, but we don't hold the audio rights of Rebecca Yarros because they belong to RB Media. So essentially what we have here is a $1 billion worth competitor whose name was unknown in the industry 5 years ago. Part of the money that KKR took for RB Media helped them to buy Simon & Schuster. This could look like a US domestic market thing, but suddenly we have Simon & Schuster CEO talking about audiobooks and Spanish language audiences. So from our perspective here in Spain, somehow the world is shrinking and becoming overcrowded. Another relevant milestone of the year, of course, will be Spotify. Everybody's so excited about the Spotify because we all know Spotify is so cool, and it's so cool to have Amazon's Audible facing a big challenger. But let's not forget that as publishers, we are part here of a platform war, and platform wars tend to look like winner-takes-all competitions with race-to-the-bottom strategies. So the takeaway here will be watch your step and don't get caught in the crossfire. Another critical moment of the year has been the public dispute between 2 very relevant actors of the digital market, both here in the room today, with some disturbing moments as well. Of course, we could say that this is business as usual. It happens in every other market. But let's face it, I mean, publishing used to be different, right? And at least, but not last but not least, two other things, a super noisy clash between a big platform, TikTok, and the music industry's leading publisher, which is again relevant for us because we know publishers how TikTok has changed the way we market books and what we expect from TikTok. And then some strange things happening in OpenAI, a company whose vision and mission nobody really knows. And we are talking about a company who could disrupt the publishing industry in so many ways. So in front of these events, our advice will be, let's stay calm. These are opportunities, of course. But jokes apart, we are facing here an audience and customer challenge, and this is very serious. It was mentioned yesterday, it has been mentioned this morning. Everything is changing around us. We have some market concentration, making access to content more difficult. We have retailers' concentration, making platforms trying to raise their stake in the value chain. And we are maybe in front of a huge platform shift, which always changes everything. No? It happened with internet, it happened with mobile, it will probably happen with artificial intelligence. So in a few words, we have here two overlapping challenges, maybe, regarding audiences and retailing. And the question will be, how can data help us in addressing all these challenges, assuming that in the past, no, we used to publish by guts, by instinct, by passion of what we think, but maybe in this new environment, we need data to help us to define strategies. So the first question, Michael, that will be for you maybe. We have maybe less people buying books or the same people buying fewer books. How could we address this new environment?
The one thing what I see is we always think that the world is black or white. This is not true. Whether it's gray or it's colored, yeah? Because if you look at the data what we've seen in the morning, the one side was white and the other side was black. But was that the truth? Yeah? If I look at, for example, to the audience, what we are challenging is that we see us in the process of transformation. It's getting more in the picture of riding two horses. Yeah? As long as these two horses ride on the same way, it doesn't be painful. But if they change the direction, riding two horses is getting quite painful. Yeah? Because you can't manage that. And that's just the situation what we have actually in the transformation. That we have on the one side the traditional booksellers getting less, you're completely right. The numbers from the brick and mortars, what we have seen just before from Rüdiger, is compared to that we have lost in the German market about 11 million readers in 10 years. And then we have to see whether are these readers or just buyers. If we talk about data, it's important to see the switch in between buyers and readers. Yeah? We don't really focus on these things. We always think, yeah, a buyer is a reader, sure. But 30% of the people in the German market, they just buy the book and they behave like a hybrid that they say, when I got on holiday, I will read this huge staple what I have beside my bed. They never did it, but they buy books after books after books. What we see now is a change in that attitude that they say, what will I do with all these books? What we see is that they get rid of these books. And how do they do that? With the new companies coming up in the market, for example, like Momox. I don't know if you know Momox. Momox is the leading marketplace bookseller for Amazon. That's why Amazon is so dominant on the book market. Amazon makes directly in his business about 50% directly. 50% of the book business is driven by marketplace parts in Amazon. We, as a publisher and a bookseller, we are part of that. Thalia, Hugendubel, all the other majors, they are part of the marketplace of Amazon. They sell their books not only in their own bookstores, they sell it directly via Amazon Marketplace. And if you look at the European market, Momox makes about, in Germany, 300 million euro a year with books. 300 million euro.
And to clarify, Momox is an online place for used books. They sell used books.
Yeah. And it makes the customers to make all the business for them. Yeah. You have to scan the book via your mobile phone, you have to pack it, you have to bring it to the delivery station, and you get only cents of that what you already have paid, let's say 5 years ago. If you look at the European market, Momox is leading number in France, number 2 in Italy, number 2 in Spain, number 3 in UK. They are the hidden champions in that book market, if you look at that. We don't address that, actually. New companies coming up, like a Dutch startup, familiar with Waterstone in UK, it's called Circle. They did the Circle book business in a perfect way. Whenever you buy a book on Waterstone, actually, you can get there whenever you want to, and Waterstone guarantees that they take the book back by a price 10 to 20% to that what you originally have paid. Circle is now coming up in Germany, working together with Hugendubel, one of the majors what we have in the alliance. And that system is that what the new generation of book buyers are focusing on, sustainability. Yeah? Combined with mobility, because when I look at my kids, they are the perfect generation set. Yeah? They switch from one university to another one. They stay 1 year here, then they go to foreign countries for 1 semester, and then they get back. They are not interested in having a library. I have a library at home. When my sons invited other guys coming there for celebrating birthday, the children get in there and said, wow, they live in a bookstore. Interesting. They couldn't imagine that you have books at home in such a huge amount. Yeah? And if you look at my kids, like Richard said in the beginning, these are not interested in books in physical. They are interested in getting access to books. For them, buying does not mean really get this book physically.
Michael, that's interesting. I mean, you're pointing some symptoms, the used books market, not having a library as a goal in life. Let's try to understand what are the underlying factors. No? I mean, how can we get to know these audiences and to engage properly with them? What, let's...
You or me? Who?
Andrew.
Okay, I shall pick up on that, and he keeps reminding me I should speak slowly so that everyone understands me. Apologies. Publishers have become much better when it comes to data. You have big publishers, including Weltbild, with audience teams, really researching what is the market, who's the book buyer. But we still have too many publishers who say, all I care about is how many books I sell. Once I've sold it, I don't care. But as Michael alluded to, if they don't read them, there's a bit of a problem. Because if they don't read them, they won't recommend them, they won't advocate them. And for a book to be really a bestseller, and all the profit of a publisher is in the big bestsellers, we need people to recommend them and become super fans. And so we still have a long journey to better understand how readers engage with books and how they consume them, feedback loops, which is some of the things we've been doing a lot, including at your old company, people. But how should a publisher first become involved with data? What's the best way of doing that? And my recommendation is forget all the complex systems, including ours, and start with an email newsletter. Best way of engaging with readers, best way of starting to understand your audiences. And then start dropping in samples for your book, either homemade ones, or one of our services called Discovery, or our competitors' Book to Look from Germany. Because I always say, if you can't even convince the reader to read the first chapter for free based on your marketing message, how will you get them to buy the book? So use an email newsletter, see if they even engage with a sample, fall in love with the book, to see if they buy it. It's one of the easiest ways of collecting data, engaging with audiences, understanding with audiences, and start collecting more data about them. We once did a focus group testing a book with a big New York publisher, and they said, we shall use our young adult newsletter, where we have all the young people on them. And we did the focus group, and afterwards we said, do you know what the median age of that email newsletter audience is? 47. Only 20% of that newsletter was under the age of 25. They had no idea. But of course, it wasn't a disaster for us, because all the data we collect, we can segment. So we looked at all the under 25s separate from the over 25s, and you can really start understanding how audiences are different. So my recommendation is start with newsletters, start investing in understanding audiences, how they engage with books, and if they become advocates for books.
The other thing is, make it as easy as possible. For what you use, for example, advanced reading copies. You give it to booksellers and you give it to journalists. That was the traditional way. Yeah? When I look at, let's say, bookstores, the antiquarians, what I see in my city, and I travel around a lot in Germany, I see the journalists getting there with suitcases and saying, oh, I have a lot of books getting from these publishing houses. I want to get rid of that. I can't read them all. Why don't you think about what you do really with the advanced reading copies? Aren't there people out there who are really interested in the new book of, I don't know, Colin Hoover or something like that, or Stephen King or John Grisham, or I don't know what?
Rather than just selling them for money and competing with your new book.
And if you look at how many customers you have, for example, that they buy, let's say, every month a book. Do you know that? Do you have any information from the bookstores, if you are a publisher, what they really do, how they act with their customers? Is there a possibility to use their newsletter for your access? Have we ever talked with them?
Michael, as a retailer, do you share this information with publishers?
Yes. There we are publishers and retailers in once. We share it, sure.
But with other publishers as well?
With other publishers we share it, because transparency and collaboration, not only between the booksellers and and the publishers, but also with the authors, is the triangle where you start a successful story. If we think that collaboration is not a model for the future, then we are completely on the wrong trace.
Let me pick from this, and moving to a different topic.
Yeah.
Here we have something interesting. No? In the real, let's say, real print books world, you are paid by the unit. You sell one book and you get paid for the whole unit, which is obvious, of course. But in all-you-can-listen platforms, things change. I mean, you are paid for the time spent engaged with your content. As much as your content is able to keep customers engaged, you will get higher revenues. So that this kind of approach has led to the music industry to change somehow the way they are delivering pop songs. And for instance, we see that in Spotify, songs are becoming shorter and getting the chorus earlier. On the left side of the picture, we have finishing rates provided by Storytel. These belong to some Planeta's titles. I'm referring this because what you said about sharing information between retailers and publishers, because at the end, we all want the same. What we see here is that finishing rates of 4 out of maybe the 10, 15 best-selling titles of Planeta may range from 30% to 60-70%, meaning that in some cases, 70% of listeners disengage from the audiobook. So that may be a success or a failure, because in non-fiction, for instance, it is usual that people don't always read the book. You know a little bit about this, Andrew. You published a very interesting post in LinkedIn a few months ago. So starting with this kind of information, some platforms are willing to share, and this is very interesting. This is an information we publishers think it's very useful, and we use it when deciding what kind of audiobooks to publish. Andrew, for instance, and because you had this post, how can this information could be used in the publishing industry from audiobooks, but maybe going beyond to other ecosystems, e-books, and applying maybe to print books?
Well, one of the services we've been running for a long time is testing books before they're launched on the market. So we use a version of a digital advanced reading copy. And even if you read it on Apple Books, or on Android app or other, we collected your reading data and we knew what your completion rate was. And we have not had in Germany a single book that's been less than 50 or 60% completion rate in fiction that would hit the top 50 Spiegel bestseller list. If you can't reach that level of completion rate, it will not succeed in the market. For non-fiction, it's much lower. God, how many readers did we have who told us they finished a book, we looked at the data, they didn't get past half of it, but they had absorbed so much, they thought, I've done with the book, I've enjoyed it. But completion rate was only one of the things. We had to ask people, were you satisfied with the book? Did you enjoy it? Would you recommend it to someone else? And then you could really understand where a book would be in the market. And I think in publishing, we're also moving more and more to series, to franchises, to big authors, you know, the Colin Hoovers, J.P. Maas. To build that, you really need to know how readers are engaging with the books. And if you don't know, are they finishing these books? Are they enjoying them? You're not building a franchise. But one important point I also want to make is don't be confused by averages. What you're seeing here is an average. You can have a book with exactly the same number. For example, a satisfaction index, you enjoyed it, 5.5 on a 1 to 10 scale. That could be all the readers giving it a 5 or 6. We call them meh books, you know. They don't leave an impression. The exact same average could be half the readers rating it 1 or 2, and the other half rating it 9 or 10. We call them Marmite books. You love them or you hate them. I hate Marmite. It's a terrible British thing to put on your toast. But the Marmite books are interesting because if half the readers hate it, you can have a bestseller with half the world not reading your book. Perfectly fine. But the other half become your advocates. They rave about the book. They tell everybody about the book. Whereas if you leave no impression, there's no one to tell others, read this book. And in publishing, we are totally dependent on all forms of word of mouth, be it digital, be it in person. It matters to our industry beyond comprehension. And so we always need to understand, is this a book that leaves an impact?
Thank you, Andrew. So here we have the biggest elephant in history, maybe. Michael, this is for you.
Yeah.
What happens when, I mean, of course, Amazon is a dominant force in every book market in the world. And Amazon as well is one of the publishers sharing data. That's interesting. That's the kind of debate we want to have. But what happens is that we find many publishers focusing on working on Amazon environment. Yeah. What's the upsides and downsides of this?
The interesting thing is that Amazon really doesn't share any information beside that what you're really focusing on. That means, as a publisher, you get only the information about your books. You don't get any information about, let's say, a genre, about other competing books or something like that. This is not really helpful because it's just a bubble side of your own perspective, what you are expecting to get there because you're investing a lot of money. If you focus, for example, to get Amazon books or a book on Amazon being promoted, you have to invest about 10,000 euros to get some marketing spending on Amazon. Amazon didn't tell you what they really in detail do with that book. They just it's a package of different things what you do. But if you look on Marketplace, then you see an interesting thing. For example, we are, as a publisher, we have exclusive material which we just sell on our catalog for our customers. For half a year, on the 6th month, or the 5th month, we started to sell these books exclusively via marketplace on Amazon. And it works. There must be a second market on Amazon Marketplace. Also, we thought everyone getting to Amazon knew that we don't have these books there. We don't invest anything, but they were found and they were sold. We have now about 20% of that, what we do with the non-fiction book market, we do on Amazon Marketplace.
With what kind of data?
We are just delivering 7 pictures. This is one of the basics. This is necessary to get there on Amazon Marketplace. Metadata is the next thing, because most of the people in Germany, they think that Amazon is the perfect search engine for finding books. They are completely crazy. Yeah? But that's the way it is. Yeah? 70% of the book buyers in Germany, they start not from Google, they start from Amazon, searching for books. And if you don't find there a book, they think the book is not in print or out of stock or whatever. Yeah? They don't ask Google or the bookstores or the publishers themselves. They finished it. And that's why you see that the relevance for Amazon is so important for the stars and the recommendations, what they do. That's what you told, yeah? Because in former times, let's say the baby boomers, the classical book readers, they just trust in journalists and in booksellers, yeah? It was a clear world. Yeah? If the journalists of El País or the Süddeutsche Zeitung said, this book is worth to be read, then they go to the bookstores and read it. Now you trust in 500 stars of unknown people, Peter F. from A, saying a wonderful book. You don't have any idea who it is, but you trust in them.
That's why you need the data.
And that's why you need the data, and start with the data by yourself. Not focusing on Amazon. Yeah? Amazon is interesting as a marketplace. Yeah? And that's what we are using now. You can do that too. It's quite easy. You can do it as an FBA or as an FVM, as a publisher. Yeah?
Let's have a look now to a successful publisher, hyper specialized in the Kindle environment, Andrew.
Because as a counterpoint, you can also say Amazon is better at giving out data, little data, the way it is, than other people.
Yeah.
When we work with Penguin, for example, on their newsletter, and I ask, why are you only linking to Amazon and not to Waterstones? Oh, I need to show the ROI. I get the real-time sales data from Amazon. None of the others give it to me, so I don't link to them. So giving at least good real-time sales data has brought Amazon a lot of advantage with a lot of people. But it also has meant that we have a whole class of publishers completely focused on the Amazon ecosystem, basically publishing into it. Either as a digital-first publisher, Book Couture would be an example, or saying, I'll first make it work on Amazon and then I'll produce a print books. But also really trying to understand how this algorithm works, what keywords do I put it in, how do I time things, because the speed at which books sell influences the Amazon. It's its own cottage system. And a not unsubstantial part of British publishing has started focusing exclusively on Amazon for that reason. I know many traditional publishers for whom Amazon is 50% of their revenues in Britain. And for some of these upstarts, it's 95%, believe it or not. That's the ecosystem we are growing into, and it's partially because I think Amazon knows exactly how much data to give you to tie you into their ecosystem, but not one bit more.
Yeah. Andrew, one question. When Hachette in the UK bought Book Couture, what's your guess? Were they buying some market share, or were they buying some know-how into
I have firsthand observed that the people that bought into the company changed the culture of Hachette UK. So some of their data-driven practices, audiences, how to engage with audience. The culture of Hachette changed. It also became a fast-growing part of their ecosystem. But of course, the guy who founded it is off and has started Storm Publishing, has left Hachette, gone, competing with his old employer. So, you know, two-edged sword, I would say. Two-edged sword, I would say.
Okay. So moving now from digital to print books, here we have another example. This is a publishing company driven by environment conscience, but then delivering a very cost-efficient approach based on marketing and sales. What can you explain us? What can we learn from them?
So it's a publisher we work with, though everything I'm talking about has nothing to do with anything we provide. But I wanted to use it as an example how working with data can be really, really simple and mission-driven. Vertebrate they call themselves an adventure publisher. They publish books on hiking, marathon, ultra-marathons, stand-up paddleboarding, these kinds of things. And of course, in this environment, you're not supposed to leave your litter when you go hiking. You know, this is totally taboo. So they wanted to become more environmental sustainable and say, we want as a publisher to be the equivalent of a hiker who doesn't leave his shit behind, his litter. And they said, we are adopting, initially it was a zero return policy, and then it became a zero pulping policy. We want none of the books we published to be destroyed. And they had 20 to 30% returns, which in UK publishing isn't that high. And they said, we want to get that down to below 3%. What did they do? They publish high-quality four-color books. So to get a good unit print cost, they usually print 4,000 to 5,000 units to get the unit print cost they need. But with every second book, they wouldn't sell that many, so they would have a huge amount of unsold stock, or it went to the distributor, 30% came back. So they switched and say, we will only print 1,000 units of every new book, but it cost them twice as much, which means they're actually paying for data indirectly, because now they print 1,000 and collect the sales data for a few weeks or months to know what is the steady state of sales I have through Amazon and specialist online retailers. So they know, for this book, no reprint necessary. I have enough from the initial print run. That one, I need 500 more for the next 18 months. That one, I need 5,000 more. Which means their returns have gone now to 2 or 3%. And whatever still comes back to them, they have their own online marketplace to sell every used book that comes back to a user again. So they pulp absolutely nothing. They call themselves a zero pulp publisher. And it was a mission-driven project, so it wasn't a strategy initiative, let's become data smart. It wasn't a CFO initiative, let's become more profitable. It was, we want to be more environmentally sustainable. We want zero pulping, something everyone in the data company could believe in. But data was what helped them get there. And no complex Silicon Valley system. It's just an Excel spreadsheet they use. But they look at data and they really said, I will collect data, even though it costs me more through the initial print run. Yeah. And after 3 years of bedding in a new way of working, and it's important, data will lead you to change how you work. And after 3 years, they're actually making more profit, more revenue. It pays for itself. But it took a while, and it took a total change in mindset, because printing in such small initial runs that are actually uneconomic went totally against the grain. But they had a strong mission why, and because they did it, so they could have data to understand how many do we really need to print, and switch the entire operation in that direction. Yeah.
We do that now for 2 years in the fiction model. We knew, for example, that a book we are publishing on crime literature, we can sell with the first move to our 2 million customers we are reaching via catalog, we can sell about 1,000 copies. In general, Our traditional business was that we say, all over the time, we need 5,000 copies. That's why we printed 5,000 copies. We stored them